Alright, guys. Peoples. I think it's about time that I came clean and talked about something very terrible that happened to me. It's something that I really haven't talked to a lot of people about. It's something that not many people know. It's not really something I was ready to talk about. But I think that this is something important that needs to be said. And it needs to be talked about. Because people need to know that it happened. That it can happen to anyone. That it's not okay. My name is Tori-Parker Alexander. I'm non-binary, and my first year in college I was raped. And I had a very specific situation. It wasn't like a party or anything like that. I'm not a party person. I don't like parties, and it wasn't like a stereotypical situation. And honestly, it's really not what you pictured. And I think that's one of the reasons why I had such a hard time with it. I didn't even realize. I wasn't sure anyone would listen. And just I didn't want to tell anyone. I didn't want to talk to anyone about it. And what made me decide to kind of tell my story is that, shortly after coming back home, like a few months coming back here to Miami, Florida, I had a neighbor who was kind of telling me about her past and how she was, molested by her father. She told me her story so casually, and it just sparked in me, and I started crying, and I said, "Can I tell you something?" And she said, "Go ahead." And she already knew. She already knew. And I told her, please don't tell my parents. And she listened. And I didn't tell her the details, I didn't tell her the specifics. I just kept going, why didn't I fight? Why did I do anything? Why did I stay with him? Why was I what was I thinking? What was I thinking? And it's still sometimes something that haunts me, like what was I thinking? And she just kind of looked at me. She goes, "You were in shock." And I said, "What?" She goes, "No one is ever expecting that to happen to them. Especially in a situation like mine where you're not even really sure what's going on. It doesn't seem real. Like, that doesn't happen. It's not going to happen to me. And you never think that, No one ever thinks, oh, I'm going to be raped. And when they do, they're thinking it's going to be a specific way, like, someone's going to roofie me. Or something, like, oh, I got to be careful that someone doesn't slip something in my drink. And no, it happens to children, and, it's something that she told me that had she not been able to talk to me about it, I wouldn't have told her what was going on in my life, and I wouldn't have had anyone to... she gave me a shoulder to cry on, and had she not opened up, I wouldn't have told her anything, I wouldn't have had that, and I wouldn't be doing this video now. And I think one of the things that just, to this day still trips me out is that I became a statistic. It's crazy. I fell into the category of two different types of statistics. not one but two, you know, being born, you know, assigned female at birth, AFAB, I fell into the category of women that will be raped or sexually assaulted within their first year of college, which I believe is 1 in 6. And I also, being non-binary, being trans, I fell into the statistic of, you know, the trans people who are sexually assaulted. And that tripped me out later, like, I became a statistic. You know, no one ever thinks that that's gonna happen to them. No one ever thinks... And it's horrifying. And it's something I kind of have to live with. I'm gonna tell you what happened now. I was ending my first year of college, and I met a guy. And in hindsight, there was a bunch of red flags. He was moving really fast, he was way older than me, and by no means does that mean that the guy that you're with is gonna rape you, but, you know, just, he was very controlling, but like, like, I didn't realize it at first, like, he kept trying to separate me from my roommate, and not wanting me to be there for her, and not wanting me to be with friends, and he wanted to get married, and he wanted me to move in with him, and have children, and be away from my family, and just live with him, and I was kind of like, no. And I guess, you know, and he was very pushy about sex, and none of my other boyfriends had really ever done that, and I thought it was just because he was so much older. You know, he was an army guy, and, you know, he'd been through a lot, and, you know, it took me a while to realize he was treating me like his wife. You know, he must have felt like I was his property or something, because, you know, he kept talking about children and me moving in with him and what I could wear and what I shouldn't wear and how I looked when people saw me with him, and just so many factors. Like, he wanted me to have sex with him, and I was just like, no, I don't believe in sex before marriage, and that's something that's really important to me. And he kept kind of pushing it, and I told him no, and I continued to tell him no, and, you know, I was like, you know, if I was drunk or something, which would never happen, by the way, but I was like, you know, if I was somehow inebriated or something, would you take advantage of me? And he basically told me yeah, and I was so taken aback by that, but I never thought, I should have, my mistake was not believing him. I didn't take him for what he said. And if anything, I don't think he's ever lied to me. In that sense. In that sense, he has never lied to me. You know? And he wanted to have children and do things, and I always told him no, and, you know, spend the night at his house, or him spend the night with me, and I remember, and I did everything for him. I would help him do his laundry. I helped him do his homework because he was also a student at the college. I basically did his homework for an entire semester, like his, there was like some sort of social U.S. government history class thing, a political class of some sort, and I did all of his essays. I helped him with laundry, and he was a military guy, so he was very specific about like his bed and things like that. And some of the things that threw me off was that he really wanted to kind of like spoil me, but in a way that I didn't want to be spoiled. Like, it was more for him. Like, he wanted to take me out places and dress me up, and he wanted me to like lay in his bed, and I was like, why? Like, I was like, but I didn't want to, you know. And he was like, but let me, like, I'm a man, I need to spoil you. And it was, and I didn't, you know, I was like, what? I didn't get it. I just thought it was some macho military man thing that he would kind of get over, and you know, it was okay. You know, it's okay for somebody to want to take you out and treat you nicely. That's okay. That's not a bad thing. It's just not something that I was used to, or that I was really into. You know, I was used to kind of paying the bill and like half and half, if anything, and he was like, no, you can't do that. And I was like, why. And he was kind of like, no, you have to wear a nice dress, and you wear something sexy, and do this and do that. And I found myself like, oh, okay, I need to go shopping for something that he'll like me in. And my roommate was like, what is wrong with you? And I was like, I don't know. I felt so compelled to do these things for him. And he was very manipulative and very controlling, and I really didn't realize it. And if I learned anything, it's never be alone in a room with a guy you just met, I remember this one time he had, gotten me on the ground or tackled me or something. We were, wrestling, something. It was weird. I don't remember what it was. But I remember calling for help. He had he lived with 3 roommates. There were 2 roommates in the room, and I called for help, and I kept saying, help, somebody help me, because he was on top of me, and I was trying to hold him back. He was a small guy, but he was still, very strong, and nobody helped me. It wasn't until I kind of squirmed, and he finally was like, oh, haha, let me go, and I kind of played it off like, oh, haha. It was very scary and terrifying. And I went to his roommates and I was like, why didn't you do anything? Why didn't you help me? And they're just like, well, that's your business. They kind of just thought I was like some, I guess sleep around who was, used to sleeping with him or something. And I was like, no, I was abhorred. I couldn't, why would you not help somebody? I was screaming for help. Did you think it was a joke? What? What is wrong with people? Even if it was a joke, I'd kind of personally would be like, hey, is everything okay in there? Something, I'd be concerned, and they just felt very uncomfortable, and they just didn't want to, confront that. And that should have been the first flag, The second flag was when I told him he did something wrong, he kicked me out of his apartment. He had, a dorm room with his roommates, and I was like, I don't agree with this, and he just got super mad and enraged, and he threw me out, and I was just like, I couldn't believe it. I what just happened? And I really liked this guy, and why would he throw me out? And if in hindsight, telling somebody that, hey, what you're doing bothers me, in a very calm and respectful manner, isn't a bad thing, and somebody who cares about you should be willing to listen. And he really wasn't. He was about to explode, and he was like, get out of my face and get out of my house, and just enraged, and I didn't understand, and I panicked, and he threw me out, and I sobbed, and I was like, what did I do? I shouldn't have said anything. I should have just kept it to myself. And things just progressively got worse. He eventually convinced me to spend the night, and at first I wouldn't spend the night unless there were people over. I made sure that there was groups of people over. I had to have at least 2 or 3 other people there, until finally he was just like, oh, you're not spending enough time with me, and you're not, you're spending too much time with your friends, and why can't we just have quality time? And he finally convinced me to spend the night at his house alone, and I promise I won't do anything, and I promise it'll just be just us, and we'll watch a movie. And I believed him, and it started off okay, and then sure enough, I'd spend the night, and I'd wake up to him, honestly, with his penis in my face. I want you to do this, and I'd be like, no. Or he'd be rubbing up against me from behind while I was asleep, and I was just like, what are you doing? But I was so groggy, I was like, just, what? I didn't even process. I was like, what are you doing? And I kind of just thought, well, men are horny, he's gonna do that. And I was kind of just stereotyping and, making excuses to why my boyfriend would be, doing inappropriate things to me in my sleep. And it gradually escalated. I remember being in my room, and he tried touching me, and my roommate was there, and I didn't feel comfortable at all, and I kind of told him, look, stop. And I tried making excuses not only I don't feel comfortable with this, but there's people there, this is my house, and I share a room with my roommate, how could you do this in front of her? And he grabbed me by the throat. His heart's still hot. Just go with it. Just let it happen. Just go with it. Just go with it. He would say that over and over again. More than one occasion. Just go with it. And he would choke me. He was choking me. And I was trying not to make noise so that my roommate wouldn't notice. But then I was trying to make noise so that maybe she would notice and help me. And I didn't want her to know, but I wanted someone to save me. And not everyone's gonna save you. There's not always gonna be someone that save you. You need to stand up for yourself. And I didn't. I didn't stand up for myself. Until finally, I thought maybe if I pretend like I'm satisfied, like he'll stop. And so that's what I did, and he stopped, and he was like satisfied with his work, like, yeah, I'm good, I'm good, like macho man. And I thought to myself, thank God he stopped. And my roommate was awake. She heard the whole thing, and she got up out of the room and was like, what's wrong with you? She was so disgusted by me. I felt like I did something wrong. It wasn't my fault. And I confessed to her later, but I didn't want her to be angry at him because he was my boyfriend. I thought it was my fault. I thought he did something. And I didn't want her to think I was disgusting. I didn't want her to think I was disgusting. So I came up with excuses, and it was a one-time thing, and it'll never happen again, and I was scared, and I just came up with excuses. And from that point on, she didn't like him. She believed me that something was not right. She could tell that something was not right. And she wasn't angry at me anymore, but she was very upset with him. But he was my boyfriend, and I just wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt, and I don't know what I was thinking, you know. And she kept telling me, you know, what are you thinking? What are you really thinking? Like, why would you do that? Why would you stay with somebody like that? And I couldn't come up with an answer. I just kept making stuff up, and then he would, you know, I told him I was queer, and he didn't want to listen, and, you know, he broke up with me, and I was sobbing on the floor over this guy who was molesting me. And, like, you know, he had taken so much from me already, and, you know, he kept talking about a future together and children. I don't even want children right now. And he was talking about getting married and children and moving in together and basically being a good wife. And I felt like I was expected to take on these things. You know, like I had to do these things, and I wasn't good enough, and I was doing something wrong. And things just kept escalating. At one point, he tied me to the bed frame with his clothing ties. He stripped me naked, and he tied me to his bed frame. But this time I fought. I had thought in my head what to do if something like that ever happened to me. And I said I would lock my legs kind of like this, twice together. I would wrap them around twice so that no one would be able to open my legs. And that was what I did. And sure enough, he tried rubbing up against me, and he couldn't get it in, and he settled for just like fingering me, I guess, and it hurt and it was painful, not because he was doing something to me, because he was so vicious about it. It felt like he was literally stabbing me with his nails, and I was bleeding afterwards, and I knew that it wasn't a normal thing, you know. Some people do bleed or whatever after intercourse, but that wasn't like normal. I knew that it was because he was physically hurting me. And I still felt this need to stay, you know. I got so scared. I didn't visit him for a while, and then he got upset that I didn't visit him, and I just felt very attacked, and still I felt like I was doing something wrong, and I was doing stuff for his birthday, and you know, trying to give him gifts and reassure him and help him with projects and support him in his career, and you know, I was literally like a wife, and it wasn't something that I wanted to be. Somebody was mistreating me. It wasn't okay. It wasn't until he'd gotten me in the morning and he kept pressuring me, and I kept telling him no. And that was the whole thing that got me, was through all of these times that he was molesting me, I never said no. I might have said an excuse, but I never said stop. And at some point, I would just go silent. And I always thought I would be a fighter, and I wouldn't let somebody take advantage of me. And I thought this was my fault, and then I thought, you know, maybe it's normal, and he kept saying go with it, and this is what couples do, and this is what being in a couple relationship is like. And I thought maybe it was me, and maybe there was something wrong with me, and you know, I didn't say no, so maybe, you know, it was my fault, and I didn't want to admit that. And no, he knew already that I didn't want to do those things. He knew that it was not okay. He knew that I didn't want to do those things, and I didn't believe him when he told me that he would take advantage of me, and that was on me. That was on me. I shouldn't have spent the night when I didn't want to. I shouldn't have been persuaded so easily. I should have followed my gut. I should have spoken up more. I should have told somebody. I should have told the police. I should have broken up with him. There were a million things that I should have done. But that in no way justified what he did to me. And just, it was the last time that he was touching me in his own bed, and I really just couldn't, and I was just like, stop. The whole time, I just kept saying stop. And finally he said, oh, that's enough, huh? I said, yes, please. Please. And it's just, he wasn't all bad. Like, he made sweet gestures, and he wanted to take me places. I didn't think of him as a rapist. It wasn't until after I came back home for summer, and I was really thinking about it in our relationship, and he kept pressuring me to leave my family and move in with him and get married, and I kept telling my mother, Mom, I don't know, and I'm getting a bad feeling, and you know, my mom just kept saying, you don't even like this guy. You don't even like him. And I said, why would you say that? And it was so hard for me to leave him, because I just felt like I had this role that I had to fulfill, and like I couldn't leave him, like I wasn't supposed to leave him, like I just was supposed to make it work, and I was supposed to compromise myself and my beliefs and my morals, and that wasn't okay. It's not okay to feel that way at all. It's not okay. And he made me feel that way, and he had already broken up with me several times, and I had told him I was having nightmares. I was having nightmares about him raping me, and I didn't even think of him raping me in real life, you know, it was just dreams. And I told him, and he goes, well, that's a problem. And I was like, in my mind, like, of course that's a problem. And he was like, well, I'm gonna break up with you for having nightmares. And I was like, what sense are you making? What logic? And he was like, well, we're just too different and I'm gonna break up with you, and he would continuously break up with me and then go, well, never mind, I changed my mind. And I would say, okay. And it was the last time that he'd done it, and then he said, never mind, and the next day he told me he loved me, and I realized this isn't okay. And finally I felt like we needed to talk about some things. And I said, he said something like, unless you think we should break up. And I said, well, maybe I think we should talk about it. And he had broken up with me already several times, and I never got upset. I always was very calm. And if anything, I just sobbed. I never got angry. But, he never saw me cry. And he just blew up at me. Like, oh, our relationship was a lie, and you never cared about me. And my whole thing was that this guy was raping me in our entire relationship, and I just thought no one would believe me. Oh, your boyfriend raped you, right? Like, oh, haha. Like, what person would believe that your boyfriend raped you? Like, that's your boyfriend. Like, oh, you just, you were having sex. And I just know, like, that's not something that I do, and that's something that he took from me that I'll never get back. And I kept thinking, it's my fault. It's not my fault. It was his fault. There is no justification for rape ever. But I learned, because I did make mistakes. Finally, I broke up with him, and I got very depressed. And I just kept thinking about these incidences and having nightmares. Even in the day, I was almost nightmares, like daydreaming nightmares of him taking advantage of me. I would cross my legs, and I still do sometimes. And I shiver, and I just disgusted, and I was so disgusted with myself. As a Christian, I didn't want to pray to God. I didn't want to tell anybody. Until finally my friend noticed something was wrong, and I told him something and some stuff, and he said, oh my God. And I told my neighbor, and the one who confided in me, I told her, and she helped me a lot. And now I think it's my turn to tell other people my story, not so that you can feel bad for me, but because if this is happening to you, I want you to know that it's not okay. If you feel like someone's taking advantage of you, speak up. It's not okay, whether it's someone who's abusing you physically or sexually or mentally and psychologically or emotionally or on any level. This guy got so far into my head without me even realizing it. And had I not had my roommate to kind of try to stop me, I would have been so much worse. And I could, just had he gotten me a few years younger, I could have gone to live with him and be his wife and had never seen my family again. And I hope and pray to God that this isn't something that he does, where he targets young people and tries to take them away and make them his wives so that he can do things to them, with justification. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt, and I'm not gonna say his name. I think he knows who he is, and I hope he realizes what he's done and how much he's messed me up. And even though the statute of limitations isn't up, I don't think that's a case that I would win in court, and I'm not about to go through this again just so that the court can tell me he's gonna walk free. And I don't really want to ruin his life even more over that. I think he has enough things to deal with on his own that he does to himself. So just so that you know, there are lines, suicide hotline that you can call. You can, get help. There are hospitals that can help you. Call the police. You can go places. Dr. Phil's wife has made an app. It's a disguised app. I'm not gonna name what it is or what it looks like. That way it still kind of stays on the down low. But know that you can look it up, and if you need it, it's an app that is disguised as something else, and you can press a help button if anybody is ever abusing you in any way. And I just want you to know that's out there, and I now have that on my phone in case something like this ever happens again. You know, there were so many times where I wished the police could have just thought something and knocked on the door and helped me. I wanted someone to help me, and I thought it was my fault. And it wasn't me. I made mistakes, but it wasn't my fault. And just know that if someone is telling you that it's normal and that it's okay, know that they're lying to you. That they're lying. They're lying. It's not okay. Don't go through what I go through every day. Every day. It haunts me. And gradually I think about it less and less. It's something that with time I know will get better. And I know that there's a grieving process that needs to take place. Just don't let it rule your life. Move past it. And this is me moving past my encounter. I know that I survived, that I made mistakes, but I'm still here and I can keep going, and that's what God wants me to do. It's what my family wants me to do. That's what I want for myself. And I don't want to be angry or sad anymore. I just want you to know that it's not okay, and that you can move past it too, and that you're not alone. There's so many people out there who have all had different experiences, and I want you to know that it doesn't matter who you are or where you are. Rape can happen to you under any circumstance, anywhere, any place, any time, to anyone, by anyone, in a multitude of ways. And it's not okay. And you can make it. And to so many of those who don't escape, to those who are kidnapped and raped and killed, to those who are held against their will, and to those who are brainwashed, and those who identify with their captors, you can survive. You can move past it. You can get through it. You're alive, and some people don't make it, and you made it. And I commend you, and I respect you for it, because it's even worse than what I've gone through, and this is bad enough. So please support people who have, been raped or been through any traumatic experience, because let me tell you, you will never know what it's like. Never will you know what it's like. And that's just all I wanted to let you guys know. And thank you so much for listening to what I had to say. And be careful, because you never know. You never know.